Did you get a pumpkin? You want to get another pumpkin? Come on.
It's not just about growing the food, it's about healing the planet.
And then what we want is food sovereignty, where we're controlling our own food system. One of the first steps in doing that is learning how to do seed saving.
Most of the things that you see growing here, that's not what those things looked like 5,000 years ago.
They have created seeds that are called Terminator seeds. Everybody say Terminator seeds.
Sure, my name is Malik Yakini, and I'm from the city of Detroit.
And what organization are you with?
I'm with the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network.
And how long ago did you start that organization?
We started that in 2006. So I was one of the co-founders. Maybe I was the primary co-founder, but we had 40 people who came together who were the co-founders of the organization in February of 2006.
Awesome. So you are here in the city of Chester, PA today, so welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I was listening to your presentation, wealth of information, a lot of stuff people did not know. Well, I want to touch on a few things that you can share with our audience today. So you talked about the modified seeds. So talk to us about why is it important to preserve seeds?
Yeah. So first of all, it's important that we have an orientation that is geared towards life and geared towards, one of the things is this. So look, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And so we all need some kind of spirituality to ground us so that we don't become arrogant and think that it's all about us. We have to have an understanding that places us within the context of the earth that we live on and life in general. And we have to have an orientation that is geared towards life and not death. And so once we have that mindset, then we begin to look at food not as a way of making money primarily, although in this society, because money is exchanged, we need to be conscious of that, but that shouldn't be our primary concern. So we need to be primarily concerned about how does the food that we eat promote life? And so the foods that promote life the most are the foods that are in their most natural state, that have been untampered with. I personally believe that the things that the Almighty Creator created are perfect as they are, and usually when human beings start manipulating them, they're not as perfect as they were. And so the more we can eat things that are less tampered with, less processed, and I'm not saying that we have to go to the extreme and not eat anything that's processed. For example, I eat tofu. Tofu, there's no tofu tree, right? Tofu comes from soybeans. It's minimally processed, but it's certainly not processed to the extent that if you go by, I used the example of Red Hot Flaming Cheetos earlier. If you buy those are highly processed foods, and many of the foods that are in grocery stores are highly processed. And so we want to eat minimally processed foods that are as close to nature as possible so that we keep ourselves in the flow of life. And being in that flow of life promotes health within our individual temples, and it also promotes health within our communities. So eating foods that are not GMO it's helpful for promoting life. It's also helpful for pushing back against the corporate food system that makes tremendous money on genetically modified food. So it gives us more control of the foods that we're eating. It gives us more control of the seeds, of the reproduction of plants when we stay away from GMOs.
Yeah. So you said a specific terminology, seed terminators. I heard
Terminator seeds.
Terminator seeds.
Yeah.
Talk to us about those.
So Terminator seeds are seeds that have been developed by dastardly companies like Monsanto, who has manipulated the genetic structure of the seed so that when you plant it the second year, it doesn't produce fruit. And so the farmer, instead of being able to save the seeds from the fruit as they have done traditionally, now has to go back to the company and buy the seed again. Even more scary is almost 20 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court allowed Monsanto to have patents on particular life forms. So to think about this idea that a company can own a life form and can sue you if you use that life form without their authorization is the most dastardly, demonic thing I can possibly think of. And so Terminator seeds are seeds that if you plant them the next year, they don't produce fruit. And you have to go back and buy the seeds again. Traditional seeds, most plants produce seeds, and if you let it go to flower at the end of the end of the year, then as the flowers mature, there are seeds inside of those, and you can save them and you can replant those. And that's what people have done for generations. And that's the cycle of life. Actually, that's what occurs in nature. Even if we didn't save the seeds, plants produce the seeds and they fall on the ground, the wind blows them, and that's how plants produce themselves. Maple trees, for example, have the little things that spin around. We used to call them helicopters when I was a child. And they plant themselves, we don't have to do anything. And they reproduce the tree. That's the cycle of life. That's how nature functions. And so we want to live in tune with the cycle of life, because trying to live in opposition to nature and the cycle of life is a surefire way to our destruction.
Great information. So we are going to the hot topic, which we've seen a lot of people doing challenges and getting all that juicy fruit from, you know where I'm going, watermelon.
Yeah.
Oh my God, tell me about these seedless watermelons.
So let me say this. I'm not advocating for seedless watermelons. I just want to clarify a common misconception, because many people think that seedless watermelons are GMO, and they're not. They're the result of hybridization. A farmer, Ben Burkett in Mississippi, if you go on Instagram, he has a video explaining this. He's grown for many years watermelons. And so it's a result of hybridization. Hybridization is this. Let's say we have two similar plants, and this plant produces seeds and pollen, and this plant produces seeds and pollen. So what happens is insects are attracted. The reason plants have flowers is because they're colorful and they attract insects. And so insects are attracted to this plant, and they land on here and they pick up some of the pollen from this one, and then they might fly to this one and they might deposit the pollen, and because they're closely related, you end up with something that's called a hybrid. And so watermelons are the result of hybridization. And after 2 or 3 generations of doing the hybridization, they produce plants that don't have seeds. I'm not advocating that people should eat those, but I just want people to be clear that that's the result of hybridization, not of genetic modification.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. I could ask him questions all day because he has so much good information, but you hit something that was very important in my stage as far as me and my husband doing better with our health.
Yeah.
You said you don't advocate for the impossible things, food types, but you talked about them being levels.
Yeah.
You just encourage those who no, I'm going to take this mushroom and I'm going to batter it up and I'm going to pretend it's chicken. You said, you know what, I'm not going to be against it, but it's levels. Just kind of encourage people in that area.
So as I said a few minutes ago, it's levels to this ish, and that ain't what they say in the street exactly, but that's the sanitized version of it. And so I guess, again, us coming from the dead level, and I'm speaking of myself, most of us grew up eating soul food because that's what our mothers knew how to cook. And they did the best they could do, and I'm grateful, I'm thankful, for all of the food and all the love my mother put into food I ate as a child. But as we grow and mature as a people and we have more information, we don't have to stay stuck on that level. And so where I grew up eating chitlins, I mentioned earlier, chitlins was my favorite food. People are amazed when they hear me say that because I'm vegan now. But where I grew up eating that, I don't have to keep doing that all of my life. As I learn more and I know more about what promotes health, I began to transition my diet. And so part of that transition for me has been getting away from dead flesh. Now, I'm not trying to convert people to vegetarianism or veganism because I know most people on the planet eat meat. I don't personally. But many people who are moving away from either eating meat at all or eating meat as frequently are beginning to find substitutes for that. And often those substitutes they're looking for have similar texture, similar taste as the meat that they're craving. And so there's been a whole industry created to create these transitional foods that are not meat, but have the same flavor, texture, and taste as meat. And many people are gravitating towards those things. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, because as I said earlier, it's probably better to eat a griller or Loma Linda burger or something like that than it is to eat a pork chop. But it's also better to eat vegetables and whole grains than it is to eat those fake burgers. And so I would hope that as people transition, that they see the transition as being part of a trajectory and they don't get stuck on that level. We're always improving, always getting better. In fact, even though I've been vegan for 40 years, my diet is still evolving. There's still things that I'm changing now, things that I used to eat that I don't eat now, as my knowledge increases and also as my body begins to cleanse itself more. Part of the reason people want that taste of meat is because chemically they're addicted to it, right? They still have the chemicals in their body and they want that taste. And so after a while, all that stuff kind of leaves and you don't have any craving. I have absolutely no desire for any kind of burger of any sort, whether it's a hamburger, Impossible Burger, or anything else. And they've even taken it to the level now where Impossible Burgers, I'm told, Impossible meat actually has blood. Like, you know, I have a friend who ran a kitchen in Detroit, and she had a lot of these Impossible meat things in a commercial refrigerator. There was a power outage and the refrigerator went out, and after several days she came in to clean up the kitchen and there was this red stuff all over the floor because as it melted it had what looks like blood. They've created it to be as similar to meat as possible. And so, you know, again, there's levels to this. So, you know, that might be a step up, but then eventually we need to figure out how do we take the next step up and the next step up and the next step up. And ultimately we want to perfect ourselves as much as possible, develop the God within ourselves, know that our temples are sacred, they're the place that our spirit dwells, and we always want to be on a continuous path of improvement.
Woo! I'm telling y'all, we could do this all day, but people giving me a side eye because I've been hogging up his time. But I want you to tell everybody how they can follow you, connect with you, and then give some final words of encouragement.
Sure. So I'm a member of the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network. Until June 1st of this year, I was the executive director. I stepped down, resigned on June 1st, and we now have two mighty co-executive directors, Gianna Cheers and Dr. Shakira Tyler, who, by the way, is from Philadelphia. And so I would encourage people to contact the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network at www.dbcfsn.org. Again, that's www.dbcfsn.org. Folks can follow me on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm under the name Be Black and Green. Be Black and Green on Instagram. And I'm on Facebook under my name, Malik Yakini, MalikYakini.
All right, give some final words of encouragement to live that healthy life.
So the first step towards living a healthy life is that you have to love yourself. And you have to understand that the Almighty Creator manifests within us. We are part of the Creator. The Creator is part of us. There is no life outside of the Creator. And so once we realize that we are divine, once you realize that you are divine, then there's certain things you're just not going to accept. You're not going to accept oppression from anybody, right? In fact, some spiritual practices teach us that oppression is worse than the grave, right? And so once you love yourself, you will never let anybody oppress you, suppress you, or give you less than what you divine, or what you desire, what you deserve. And so part of that is our health as well. Again, once you understand that you are a divine being and that your temple is where that divinity dwells, you have the responsibility and the obligation to keep your temple as clean as possible, to keep yourself as healthy as possible, and to make yourself be a living tribute to the Creator. Peace.